Welcome back to the Postscript, the podcast about films where the discourse ended with an ellipsis rather than a period. I'm Chris Hall.
I am Sebastian.
This is Mateo.
And on this podcast, we will be reassessing films of recent memory where the discourse was left unsettled. We will try to provide more definitive takes on films that generated a lot of buzz upon release, but their reputations have since become murky, or maybe they've just fallen through the cracks altogether. Movies that make you ask, where are they now? This month on the pod, we're covering all of the Star Wars feature films released in the post-Disney acquisition era. We began this endeavor last week with Rogue One, where we determined that even if the heavily reworked nature of the film causes it to feel a bit rough around the edges, or maybe like a clashing of visions, from a purely filmmaking standpoint, it's still a massive achievement in a lot of ways, especially from a technical perspective, and it lands the plane in a way very few of its peers in the past several years have, and is a pretty resounding success in terms of how it fits into the Star Wars universe and complements the surrounding stories of the franchise. And this week, we will be covering the second anthology film in this era of Star Wars movies, Solo: A Star Wars Story. And we will be joined by our very good friend and Solo truther, Dylan Smith. Dylan, how we doing?
If there's no Solo fans left in this world, I am dead. I'm doing amazing. I'm so excited to rewatch this. This is like, especially around this time of year, the holidays, everyone has like, oh, I watch Elf every year, or I watch It's a Wonderful Life. This is my It's a Wonderful Life. This makes me want to live again, watching Solo every year.
Let's go. I love that.
I've been running scams on the street since I was 10. I was kicked out of the flight academy for having a mind of my own. I'm gonna be a pilot. Best in the galaxy.
Hey, kid. I'm putting together a crew. You in?
That's yes.
This film tells the origin story of Han Solo, played by Alden Ehrenreich, or Alden Ehrenreich, we'll see, and Chewbacca, who join a heist within the criminal underworld 10 years prior to the events of A New Hope. So, okay, before we get into how this movie performed, we're going to talk about, like Rogue One, the kind of production woes of this film, right? Similar to Rogue One, underwent reshoots, underwent, in a more official way, director changes, right? Kind of an authorial intent change. And this movie is less of a tale of two movie productions than Rogue One. So the original directors of Solo were Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who many folks know, but they are responsible for 21 and 22 Jump Street, the Lego movies, and are also kind of like the driving creative forces behind the Spider-Verse movies. Very beloved auteurs. Filming for this movie reportedly began on January 30th, 2017. And it was roughly 5 months later on June 20th when it was announced that Lord and Miller and Lucasfilm were parting ways over, quote, creative differences. And not to get too lost in the weeds here, but it seemed the primary reason for this was that Lucasfilm was not a fan of the kind of improvisational nature of Lord and Miller's filmmaking style, and they were deviating too far from Lawrence Kasdan's script, which Kasdan was extremely protective and passionate about. And so Lawrence Kasdan, for those who don't know, he co-wrote like Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, kind of legend within Lucasfilm, and he pitched a bunch of potential stories to George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy at the beginning of the decade. And the one he was most passionate about of this bunch was his Han Solo story. And so they kind of, again, like keep on good terms with Kasdan, they kind of gave Lord and Miller the boot, which is oversimplifying it, but that was kind of the driving reason. Very quickly after, very fast turnaround, Ron Howard was hired as the new director. It was said he was going to be flown to London by June 26th, 6 days later, to start filming again. Principal photography for this movie wrapped on October 17th of that year, and it was reported that Ron Howard reshot about 70% of the film, and that Lord and Miller weren't even going to like challenge for like a directing credit in arbitration. The extensiveness of these reshoots also caused the budget to balloon to $275 million, which is dummy expensive, one of the most expensive movies ever. And the film was finally released on May 25th, 2018, just like 5.5 months after The Last Jedi. And the unfortunate reality is that this movie was unfairly a victim of perhaps the most unpleasant period in like Star Wars and fandom history, right? Because so this was the first Star Wars film released after The Last Jedi. Again, it came hot on the heels of Last Jedi just a few months after, which was the most polarizing entry in like the history of the franchise up until that point. And
any franchise.
That's probably any franchise, and completely divided the fan base. And as a result of the bitterness towards the franchise as a whole, because of The Last Jedi, that some fans had, and also this common, like, again, a little unfair sentiment of like, nobody asked for a Han Solo movie. This movie was playing from behind, like from the get-go. So, and also, and this is maybe like too anecdotal evidence, but like we were talking a little bit on the last pod, how like we always remember like exactly where we were when like a Star Wars trailer came out. Like those are like core memories. None of us could remember anything about the marketing for Solo. Like, we're not sure those trailers existed.
At most, a Super Bowl TV spot.
Yeah, I definitely had a Super Bowl spot. Couldn't tell you what that looked like or what even that looked like. And so the film was met with lukewarm reception from critics and grossed just $400 million at the box office, which greatly paled in comparison to the 3 previous entries, which all grossed over $1 billion. Like Rogue One, Last Jedi, Force Awakens, they were raking it in. This one, not so much. And like an ungrateful child getting their toys taken away, that next month, it was reported that all the anthology films were put on hold as a result of Solo's poor performance. And this poor performance, which was only added onto by the mess of The Rise of Skywalker the next year, is the prominent reason we not only haven't gotten a Star Wars film in like the 4 years since, with none on the horizon, but also why Star Wars has largely pivoted to what I'm sure they find as risk-averse television series on Disney+. And also the fans' stubborn rejection of Alden Ehrenreich's take of Han Solo is also a large reason they've been so fearful, like casting anyone new in a previously existing role, which is why we've gotten so many cursed, just like uncanny valley, like recreations of characters, most prominently Luke Skywalker on the Disney Plus TV shows. I mean, that was like a Kathleen Kennedy quote herself. She was like, yeah, after Solo, we learned our lesson. What? Like, just took it. Girl, that was what you're supposed to take from that.
Wait.
Yeah.
I mean, even with Darth Vader, it's like they don't like that James Earl Jones sounds too old now. So his voice gets like remixed with AI to sound younger.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean,
crazy.
we're going to talk about this in the sequel trilogy watch, but like it genuinely feels like a lot of the execs of the Lucasfilm spend way too much time on Reddit and like listen to like their feedback and take it way too much to heart. Where it's like Darth Vader scene, let's recreate that as many times as we can.
The Reddit comment boards have like taken their lunch money.
You know, they didn't like recasting Han. We're never doing that again.
Yeah.
You know,
no, seriously.
Just like from a business standpoint, Solo as an anthology film was really testing, like, can we do this? Can we continue this franchise? Make ideas kind of play along with it. Because Rogue One, it's like shot in the dark. None of the characters are really grandfathered in, except Darth Vader shows up. But Darth Vader is used in Rogue One as just like an action figure that you can plop in and just he'll like kill everybody.
Get people fired.
This is like Han Solo. This is playing on like a beloved character like Harrison Ford's Han Solo. It's like, all right, now we're gonna make his backstory, which it makes sense from a business standpoint. It's like a little bit familiar, a little bit new, which is what Force Awakens was.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with this is like, do we even need the question all the fans were like, do we even want this? Do we even need this? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because part of the charm of Han Solo is it's like the novelty of him is like, you know, it's like the guy, he's not in center frame. He's like the cool guy that comes in, you know? And so
it's like the Joker effect we talked about. Does Joker need a movie, or is he better as a supporting cast?
Yeah, like you don't make a movie about Jaws, you know? It's like he's just there. But and so like in these like Disney Plus endeavors, you know, besides Andor, which remains one of the best shows you can find anywhere the past several years, have largely like diluted the brand of Star Wars and made it again a lot less of a novelty than it was when these films were being put out. And I mean, we could spend like an entire episode discussing just the misfires of the Disney Plus era. Which again is also like not just because of Solo, but also because when Bob Chapek stepped in for Iger, he wanted to like pump up the streaming service as much as possible. But again, we'll leave it at that for now.
To be fair, yeah, that hadn't happened yet. Like none of the
Yeah.
Disney Plus shows were open, or I don't think Disney Plus was around when Solo came out, right?
No,
Like,
No, it wasn't.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So that being said, all this can be pretty like succinctly summed up into Solo got a raw deal, right? And all these years later, so many people still have just like never really given it a proper chance. And honestly, this is maybe the Star Wars film I'm like most excited to revisit this month because I mean, I haven't, not to get too far into that, but I haven't seen it since theaters, and I'll share more later. But like, I remember having a really great time with it, right? And I was always kind of mystified by some of the animosity towards it. Ultimately, it seems like a harmless piece of filmmaking that has reaped some unbelievably bleak consequences, right? So,
Yeah.
That being said, I want to throw to everyone's kind of personal experiences with this film. Dylan, as the guest on the pod, let's start with you. What was your solo A Star Wars Story experience?
I mean, I feel like with Solo, definitely when it was released, I had probably the most experience seeing the success and failures of it because I was working at a theater when this dropped. And so I got to see the hype for Last Jedi and the filled seats, and you know, everyone's there, the lines backed around the corner. Solo could have been a ghost town. There could have been tumbleweeds going through there. I was in disbelief that Solo would be good after The Last Jedi. Because around 2017, I didn't really like The Last Jedi when it came out.
You went on a journey.
I did kind of flip my switch once I saw the whole finished product, and I'm like, this is the trilogy we got. That one's not that bad. Perhaps I treated them too harshly, to quote Thanos. But I distinctively remember, like, it got to be early June, late May of 2018. A guy walks out of the theater, looks me dead in the eyes, and goes, "This is the best Star Wars movie ever made." They finally, like, this is the one.
Whoa.
This was amazing. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And then I'm like, it can't be. There's lines in that movie where it's like, they ask him, like, who are your people? And Alden's like, I don't got anybody. And they go, all right, last name Solo. Like that stuff. Or even like one of the funniest lines now is like, Chewbacca, you're going to need a nickname because I'm not calling you that every time. Like, lines like that it's like, we didn't need to know why he calls him Chewie. That doesn't need to exist. Like, I'm going to blatantly explain this. So
it's the fan force meme. It's like, wait, say that again.
Yeah.
For the most part, I think after Force Awakens, I was pretty much bored with it. I was kind of hating on Star Wars.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I didn't really like Rogue One. I didn't watch the Clone Wars. Which I was gonna say that this feels like the first one where they kind of force the Clone Wars thing in, but Saw Gerrera's in Rogue One. I forget that because I never watched that show. But, like, for editing reasons, a known a character that will be unnamed shows up at the end, and if you weren't watching Clone Wars, you would be confused. Why that character would reappear. But yeah, I think I sat on this for probably a year or two not watching it. I think during COVID or maybe 2021 in recent year, I decided to pop it on because it ended up on Netflix, not even Disney Plus.
Dude, I remember that.
Yeah.
And so I put it on, and it's the perfect movie to put on when you have nothing better to do. I know that sounds harsh, but like, I just want to have fun right now. Put that on. It's got it. I know that, like, a big thing with the Disney's like marketing plan, especially when Mandalorian boomed, so like it did so well, they were like, yeah, let's bring it back to Star Wars' Western roots, you know, get that Tatooine feel again.
Yeah.
And I feel like this does that. It adds a little Western into it with some scenes. But it's fun. They have fun with it. I think Phil Lord Lord and Miller's, like, whatever, like, their pre-work on it still lingers. in the film. So you still have something that's fun.
Yeah.
This is just a movie that, in my opinions, it was cradled and overlooked like backseat drivers in the studios, because this is the one with Han Solo. This is Han Solo. This is a big name, and so this is their first time trying to take on a new kind of idea with a beloved character. And I think that's why you said we liked Andor. Andor doesn't really do that, because Andor's not. It's a new character, like 2016. Boom, that's it. That's his legacy. Everything else, like Mandalorian, brings back Luke, and then, or they'll bring Mon Mothma, or they'll have like all these characters come back, and so they have to like treat it with this like care and like
They're on eggshells
awe and spectacle. And that's what this is. It's like Solo was a marble slab, and Disney was like, let's try not to chisel this too hard. Let's not try to make this into something, because what if they don't like it? And the problem is, it's like, you didn't want it to be one thing, you didn't want it to be something else. Now it's just like beige, because it doesn't really stick in one lane. It doesn't have too much fun. But then also it's like, doesn't take itself too seriously. To me, the Solo is a glimpse of what Star Wars could be if they just let loose once in a while. If they made a Hobbs and Shaw of the Star Wars universe.
Right. It just kind of like
that gets me hyped, but the other stuff was.
But I see what
before,
you're thinking,
I don't want to just hog the mic, but like before the Disney acquisition, they had people going, let's make new characters then. We can't use Han Solo? Fine. Let's make a Han Solo-like character. And that's when you get Dash Rendar. And then you get Lebo, which Dash Rendar is just a Han Solo insert. Like, that's all they had to do. And I think that's what, after Solo, you kind of see that being echoed, and the video games are like, okay, let's make a new character and have it be its own little story. Sure, we'll glance around and see some aspects, but like the Jedi Survivor, like that whole storyline, that's like kind of what they're doing. And so far it's a successful thing where it's like new characters, new story. It's still like
playing in the playground of like the prequels / original trilogy.
No one's gatekeeping Cal Kestis.
No one's like backseat driving that.
Yeah. And I totally agree what you're saying. And I like what you said. It's like, this was our last glimpse of what what the next 10 years of Star Wars could have been, like, especially if they like, again, unhandcuff themselves, like if they like release themselves from like being held at gunpoint by Reddit, just like we could have this like Han Solo train heist, or something fun like that. Well said, Dylan. Well said. Mateo, Seb, how about you for this movie?
I gotta say, I think I haven't really alluded to it much, but like when Force Awakens came out in 2015, that was like one of like the defining like movie moments of like my lifetime, right? Like
of most people's lifetimes.
Like, I mean, seeing because it was the first Star Wars movie really that I got to see in a theater. And so like you saw the lines out the door. It was like this crazy electric moment. And with Rogue One, you got a continuation of that. Like, the movie was also massively successful. Like, everybody kind of walking out of that third act was like, oh my gosh, like this is the best thing I've ever seen. And even with The Last Jedi, which is a movie with like such a divided reception, right? Like I was still kind of riding that high, right? Like, I was like, I love Star Wars right now. I'm having a blast. Like, this can do no wrong. I was like less of an online person. And so like coming into Solo, I kind of expected it to be just the same as every other one, right? Like it was going to be like this big event, like stacked everything. At the time with Star Wars, I would like just review embargo myself. I was not looking at anything. So I didn't know how this movie was going to be received. And I walk into the movie. I'm like, okay, there's nobody here right now. And this is a Thursday preview. No lines. No one cares about this. Big disappointment, but I had fun. I had a lot of fun in the theater. But there definitely was this feeling like walking out. I'm like, there was a lot of fun, but like, like felt very disposable. I don't know. It was an interesting moment. And I think I've seen it like maybe once or twice since then, and I've kind of like warmed up to some elements of that kind of like heist and the sense of humor of the movie, but I have not seen it since meeting Dylan. And Dylan is the guy most responsible for hyping me up for this. So I've kind of waited, and it's like now I don't know. I feel like I'm coming at this movie with fresh eyes. I'm excited to see what there is buried under the surface of this movie.
I mean, I feel like I definitely am a snake oil salesman for this movie. Like, definitely a con artist. I will sell this. I will go door to door selling this as a good movie, because I mean, that's what it is. It's fun, but it's not necessary in the whole scheme of things. I mean, this is Lawrence Kasdan back on the script. So I think, again, it's that thing where it's like you have basically all the bones of the original series, like the same writers now. You have a character from the past, the OT, and then you have Lord and Miller on production, and they're messing with the concept art for the Falcon, where it's a Pontiac Firebird design. And it's like you're seeing all that stuff. You're hearing all the stories of the fun gags where they're going to just be totally goofy with this Kasdan script. And I could see that's where like the heads were butting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You're taking something that we loved, we love, and we hold it up on this pedestal. But Lord and Miller are kind of were treating it like Star Wars was the action figures we used to play with as a kid, and now we can actually
yeah.
What if Solo had a fur coat and was walking around, and there's robot fights, and I don't know, it's fun. And that's what Star Wars should be. When's the last time you laughed at a Star Wars thing since Solo? I don't know. A good bit.
I mean, that's a great point. Yeah.
They fly Solo, now.
Yeah, probably.
No one's making jokes in Ahsoka. No one's making jokes in that show. Like, that's everyone's BPM is 55 in that show. Like, it's like golly. So if you were a door-to-door salesman, what is your like 90-second like elevator pitch for like this is why you ought to watch Solo? Like this is why this is a good thing that exists.
Whoa. Well, you don't even have to. The thing about Solo is you don't even have to like Star Wars to like it. I think the character work is done so well, and I think that's what needed to happen, especially with a character like Han Solo. Alden knocks it out of the park. Totally underrated. He's making it his own, and also just having fun with it, carrying that along with. I mean, you have Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Controversial. A lot of if you go to the Redditors, they're gonna hate on it. I know I saw a lot of hate for L3, but no, hilarious. Then you have Woody Harrelson also doing something that's fun. Again, just batting off. It's a tennis match between Alden and him for a lot of scenes. And then Donald Glover doing his own thing, adding a little Billy D. Williams into the voice.
That was a big deal when he got cast, by the way. Like, everyone was just like perfect. Like, nailed it. I just remember that.
and he does, and he definitely, and that's why there was a lot of like, oh yeah, if we can get Glover to stay on, we'll do a spinoff series like even before the movie was released, and hopefully we do get a land. I mean, I'm a Solo 2 truther. So
apparently they're making a Lando movie now.
Yeah, they're making Lando.
I think it's going to be a movie, which is what Solo 2 should be.
Yeah, no, and
Lando.
Aaron Rick, he said he signed on for 2 more movies. Like they have him for 2 more if they want him. Bring him in. Oh yeah,
comedy with those two.
But y'all know that ain't happening.
I wouldn't. Even though it's like, they're there are some aspects of backseat managing for like the Han Solo character. You're right in the sense that it is feel liberated in many other ways. Again, with the sense of fun, with the you don't need to know really anything else.
And the stakes are so low.
Yeah.
Because Rogue One,
very self-contained.
Rogue One is this is the Death Star plans. If we don't get this,
the biggest stakes ever. Yeah.
And then same with the main line movies. Like Solo is just a mobster's not going to get his fuel, and that's it.
No, you're so right. It is very refreshing in that way. And I'm sure, yeah, after all these years of Disney Plus, like I'm sure it's just gonna feel even more just like, man, like what we would do to get something like this again.
Disney was going down that route with like you had Spider-Man Homecoming, which was just like, how can we make the stakes incredibly low while we have these mainline stories going on, so people go to the big events, but they also enjoy like the small things. Because like I would put this a little bit above Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it's the same level of a threat where it's like, you know, it's not the end of the world if Solo doesn't pull this off. It's just the end of him.
That's a problem. A lot of these things are happening of just like when it's always the end of the world, it's like it never is, you know, like all these new movies are just like, yeah, this is our biggest threat. Yeah, it's like, we said that 9 months ago. Like this means nothing.
Say what you will, there's no beam in the sky in Solo. There's no beam in the sky. This would probably my Casey Neistat movie. Casey Neistat, YouTuber, has The Godfather. When his computer goes in sleep mode, The Godfather just plays on mute on loop forever because he loves The Godfather so much. So it just silently plays on loop on like all his screens when he's not doing anything. This Solo would be my Casey Neistat movie, I think. Just that constantly, because you could jump in on that, like sit down and go, oh, we're at the train heist. Oh, we're at the Kessel Run scene. Like those are just fun scenes to just jump in and then drop out. That's why it's the perfect streaming movie.
No,
pause.
This movie probably would have thrived in like on like again like a FX has the movies like 2014, just like it would have had a great cable life, you know. Like
no, I think it's a better viewing experience to watch this at home now
with
than
commercials
to have gone into the theater. Yeah, with commercial breaks.
We just wrapped up the robot, insurrection. Let's go get some snacks.
I mean, you had that insurrection scene and then immediately go into the Kessel Run.
Yeah,
it's like those are two fun scenes back. Those are great set pieces. Boom, boom. Once that insurrection happens, the rest of the movie it's just full speed ahead.
Yeah,
with that. The slowest parts is him. It's like until he meets Woody Harrelson. That's when the movie drags.
Yeah.
I mean, there's fun parts. And Emilia Clarke again, great. Like I remember.
She's fun.
I've seen this.
I
like
don't remember
5 times.
Anything about her. Anything.
I think you'll be impressed. I honestly, because she pulls her weight in it, and I feel like for a role that it doesn't ask that much, it like she could have just been background set for the material. Really, she does actually become a full presence in the film, and you I don't know. For me, at least, I was rooting for her. And this is also the film that brings back Terrace Kasi, which is the martial arts form that she knows. It's from like an old video game, like a Star Wars fighting game, where that martial is it Knights of the Old Republic?
No.
Well, no, they do have some fighting styles in that game, but
no, but we got the Achani. We got the Achani with the unarmed combat. We don't get Terrace Kasi.
No, Terrace Kasi though, but that's what that is what Emilia Clarke knows, and it's like fun that they like bring that back, and that's only something you'd find in a booklet, like an art booklet or something. Commentary.
No, you're so right.
It's like, oh yeah, that's Terrace Kasi. Also, this is John Powell on the score. So John Powell and John Williams.
I was about to say one of the more underrated film composers of this century is John Powell.
I remember the Han Solo score, or like his theme in this film cooks.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's
No, absolutely.
No, one of the best parts about Solo that I like to kind of add as a bullet point is that they have original fake songs, which you never see anymore. Which I mean, like aliens going song? Like blee blah blah blee blah.
Yeah,
they have songs like that, like lounge music in Solo, and that's fun. Solo should be fun,
dude.
We don't
Max
need
Rebo
to
back
the
on the
same
clarinet.
sweet.
Yeah.
There's no Max Rebos in Rise of
No.
Skywalker.
Where my clue horns, guys? Where are my
Right?
clue horns
I know
at?
there's
Where are
like
my
one
Moz
track
boxes, bro?
called Chicken in the Pot, which it's funky. But the most of the score, like the Corellia chase score, goes hard.
Yeah.
The end track that's like in a cave, it's like jungly. That sounds like something that would be like at Rainforest Cafe.
Oh, let's go.
But it goes hard. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, Star Wars can do that.
Dylan's just leaking his
Yeah,
Spotify Wrapped right now. He's reading right off of his results. Yeah.
I know. No, it should have been. I think maybe in 2022 that was like no lie. But again, it's like I like when Star Wars does stuff where I'm like, oh, Star Wars can do that.
That's a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah, because I mean, besides Andor, it's like very consciously playing into people's hands, you know, like past couple of years being like, we know you like this, here it is, all these things, you know? And I remember you mentioned like the Kessel Run scene, and I do remember that scene looking like weirdly good. Like I remember in theaters, I was like, this is kind of like stunning VFX. The movie was up for best VFX at the Oscars, and like less beloved films still looked great and had so much poured into like the production design. And like again, this was shot by hold on, what's his name again? Shot by Bradford Young, who I mean, DP on Ain't Them Body Saints, Selma, Arrival, and then he shot this movie, the last movie he ever shot. Like this is his last credit. Whoa. He's a very, very talented DP. Like, and again, it's like now like everything's just like volume tech city, but again, Andor innocent. Everything's just volume tech city, and just like Star Wars just like doesn't look that good nowadays. And like, but this I know this is what we look so much grander than that. Star Wars does kind of belong in the theater, yeah.
I will say I think this is one of those movies where it's like it could have used more light. This is a dark
I remember thinking that. Yeah. I was like, what a dark
That was a big
movie.
complaint.
Weren't you watching somewhere and you're like, bro, you got to turn the brightness up on your TV. Like, what are you doing?
I was showing a friend this movie for the first time at another friend's house, and their TV, it was just so dark. It was like playing Pokemon on an original Game Boy. Where you need that light lamp. You need the light lamp because the movie is not backlit. There's nothing. So for the most part, if you're watching this like on a laptop or something, you're gonna have to like sit an inch from the screen, or just pray that like you can make out the silhouettes moving around and stuff. Because there's like at least 5 scenes where I'm like, we could have added a key light here. It's all natural. It is all natural.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to have that like seedy underbelly look, but I'm like, let me see something. You know?
That's fair. I mean, I know,
like this movie. I'm trash on it too much. I like this movie.
Yeah, it looks great. Otherwise, I'm sure. Yeah. It still looks like they're in like a real environment and not just like not standing in some square on a soundstage in Atlanta, you know. But I know we veered off course a little bit. But Seb, what was your solo experience?
This one's an interesting one. Rogue One was probably my like least, exciting or memorable of the Star Wars experiences. This one's kind of funny because it was the first movie I saw when I got to Gainesville. Actually, first. I arrived. I took a bus to get to the theater. This was before I was either Scooter Seb. And basically, I went on a Friday. Chris and I joked about this before we did the pod, but like I went on a Friday, not the Thursday night preview, because it was like I just like there was no rush to go see this movie. No one was talking about it.
Did not need to pre-order your tickets. They were available. Yeah.
The theater was empty. I didn't even order it on my way. I took a bus to a theater without tickets, and like basically just like knew that I was gonna get in. And so I was aware of. I mean, at this point, your boy was exhausted from Last Jedi fighting online. I had been in the trenches for 6 months at this point. And we'll talk about that, down the line. But like there's a bit of a worn out feeling going into the movie. You're just like, I don't know if I enjoy Star Wars right now because it's just like bringing a lot of negative emotions. And it's not even the movie's fault because I enjoyed all the movies up to that point. Yeah. And Solo, watching it, there was nothing I disliked. I remember not having like any like, it's just no strong reaction from me. I was just kind of like, I had a good time. And I'm probably not going to rewatch it. Like that gets,
Yeah.
which is a bummer. I don't ever want to feel that way about a Star Wars film. So that part of it was like, yeah, like I wish I had a reason why to go back. But Solo was one of those first Star Wars projects that felt like one of those ones that had a checklist or something that they had, like there was almost like a criteria that they had to follow in order for it to be a successful movie. Like Obi-Wan kind of, was on that path too.
Checklist
like,
City.
Yeah, where basically
Yeah.
there's just a bunch of beats that you have to hit because it's like that's who that character is, and if you don't cover it in a prequel or whatever period you're covering in their lives, then you've messed it up. So like it, they had the Kessel Run, they had how he met Chewie, how he got the Falcon. For some weird reason, his name was not necessary. But also they had a weird fixation on his
the dice.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't think we ever cared about the dice, but they think it's like that important. But just funny stuff like that. All these little things that Han alludes to, like the Kessel Run, where they're like, we have to explore that. I feel like sometimes
and his gun too.
You don't have to see that thing. The good thing is though, they took the idea of the Kessel Run, ran with it, and nailed it. Like it could have been anything, because that's the nice part, is it's pretty ambiguous. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, I ran the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs. Like that means nothing. But they took it and actually did a really cool thing with it, and one of the better set pieces of the Disney era, I'd say. So I overall, like, I'm really excited to go back into that, because I think I rewatched it one time during the pandemic. And even then, like, I don't know, like it just like wasn't a good watching experience, because I was like watching on my phone or something. So like I
Game Boy Light. Like, you needed the Game Boy Light. Yeah,
exactly. Like I need to really give this movie its first real fair rewatch shot this time. So yeah,
and hopefully do a 180, like 180 on opinions. But again, with that checklist, I'm surprised they didn't go as far enough to be like, this is how he gets his vest.
Honestly,
like that's the one thing they were.
They show the gun.
Overdoing it.
They show how he got his gun.
Yeah.
It's like
that's so funny. No, yeah, and like, because that is like almost like the mission statement of the show. So much is like, let's watch it like removed from its moment. It's like like all the baggage and expectations from its moment. It's like let's just view this thing in a vacuum. And like I do think this will benefit from that. And yeah, and like like you were saying stuff, it's like, yeah, my like, again, like the only one of these movies I like didn't see opening night. Again, not the thing is, and I was like, I love The Last Jedi. Spoiler alert for that part. I love that coming off. I wasn't like bitter towards Star Wars. Like I loved that, and like maybe I was a little battle weary like you, but like I just did not feel the anticipation for this film at all. Like I didn't feel that marketing buildup. I remember it was like, oh, Solo comes out this week. Okay, that's cool. It's like, yeah, like I guess do you guys want to do that this weekend? Like that was just kind of like, that was the vibe around it. And I remember sitting down, and I remember being very, very pleasantly surprised by it. I was like, I think like Mateo, I was like, wait, like that was just like a really, really fun time. Like, and not in like a gatekeeper, like this is what Star Wars should be way, but I was like, I just like felt like Star Wars, like that gave me the emotions that I like typically receiving from Star Wars, like that, like in the best way possible. And from that point on, I do remember feeling this like kind of like urge to like advocate for it, because I knew so many people so, again, like just bitter and hostile towards Star Wars, that I was like, I know you hated Last Jedi, but I was like, I don't think you will be offended by anything in this movie. Like this is a very palatable, like maybe a little better in for worse in some ways, like the beige marble effect, like Dylan was saying. But I was like, you will not be upset by anything in this movie, like please go see it. And I've seen so many people like converted since then, hit me with the whole like finally got to Solo, not bad. I've heard that like 2 dozen times in my life. Like people are always just, like, I don't know what they were expecting, but like the narratives surrounding the film again buried the actual like contents of the movie. It's like yeah, like there are awesome set pieces in this thing that no one is aware of, right? Like
Ron Howard knows how to make them. Look, he's I know they're
seasoned.
He knows how to make them when they tell him what to make.
Yeah, like I know there are mixed feelings about Ron Howard as a director, but I think if the material is good, he'll give you something fun. Maybe even something great sometimes. Apollo 13, that's a banger.
No, he has some heaters. No, yeah. I mean, he's a sturdy director, and if he's operating with the like with some Lord and Miller DNA, that I'm sure is like elevating it and like kind of weaves throughout. Like that's, I don't know, like he was definitely set up for success, right?
I mean,
for sure.
I do
They teed it
kind
up.
of wish Lord and Miller got to finish that movie because it's just like
question. I think we will all agree. Yeah,
it genuinely feels like a perfect like directing choice for the Han Solo character.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
You know?
1,000,000%.
That's my Snyder cut.
Seriously,
Is the Lord and Miller Lost film.
I mean,
But-
they filmed for 5 months. Like, do you think like? I mean, obviously, I don't think they filmed 100% of it, but like they had a lot. That's 5 months of filming.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
Yeah.
Who's to know?
Trapped in the vaults of Lucasfilm forever.
I will say though, like going off what you were saying, if I had like $1 for every time someone said, you know what, I revisited Solo, it's good. Solo 2 would be financed by now. That's just I think Star Wars is perhaps the best franchise to watch after it's sat for a year or two.
Yeah,
That's why we're doing a whole month. When
you're so right.
When you're not like watching it, with that spectacle of like, this is the new Star Wars movie, may it hold up to one of the best movies ever made or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you sit there and you watch with your arms crossed. This is like, all right, it's been out for 5 years. I'm gonna put it on Disney Plus. Pause whenever. I'm just sitting back in a lazy boy. Like, this is the way to watch this. It's like the Solo is the least offensive Star Wars movie. I don't think fans can get that butthurt about it. And if they do, it's like they're holding this franchise to too high of standards.
If that's the case, then nothing will make them happy. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. Loosen up, bro. Go outside.
It's maybe they have their own wish list and they're like, where was Greedo?
where
was Jabba?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Where was Dengar? Yeah.
Why didn't he do any Star Wars Connect dances? Like
that is one thing I wanted to add, because when you're like, oh, like the casting is so amazing. I thought it was hilarious how like they saw like over 3,000 people for like to cast Han Solo. Like they went through so many folks, and there's so many names we know on that list. And then for Lando, they were like, yeah, we just wanted Donald. Like we just wanted want Donald Glover, and we got Donald Glover.
Sometimes it is just the obvious choice is the right one. Like,
totally. Sometimes it is that
I think
easy.
that's fair. Also, I want to briefly bring up the directing thing, the directing challenge of Star Wars, where like there's always someone being replaced or kicked off a project, because like I don't know if we're gonna get around to that in the next few weeks, but like
this was like a good real instance of that.
Yeah, like a good spot to do it, because after this it kicked off a cascade of like one of the weirdest trends in Hollywood currently, where and specifically with Lucasfilm, where a project of a pretty highly renowned director will be announced to a Star Wars film. They're attached to something.
A trendy director.
The very trendy. Like, for example, Patty Jenkins had a Rogue Squadron film.
Mm-hmm.
Or Taika Waititi has his own Star Wars film. There's like a lot of different big name directors. I'm
Josh
pretty
Trank.
sure.
Josh Trank.
Oh yeah, Josh. I'm not even sure how that happened, but
Colin Trevorrow, yeah.
But then all of a sudden, they have their most recent film come out, and it's like either like kind of wishy-washy or just is a downright, dud. And like all of a sudden, like their Star Wars movie project, their future Star Wars movie goes up in smoke. Like it's like
it's like being on the cover. It's like being on the cover of Madden. Like
it's
for a Star Wars movie. Your next movie is going to be bad. Yeah.
I mean, this killed the anthology lineup.
No, they literally scrapped
Disney anthology movies, Rogue One, Solo, nothing else. Everything else gone.
Yeah. This is the last
and then
one.
now they're okay.
They turned Boba Fett. Boba Fett was going to be a movie, and now it's that series that
Kenobi got turned into a series. Yeah,
and then Obi-Wan, same thing, going to be a movie, turned into a series. Yeah, it's just one of those things where like they thought manifesting all this stuff into like the Mandalorian profit train was going to work, and it didn't. And now that's its own problem now. But I feel for like the loss of Star Wars movies. Like there was probably some real creative vision there that we could have gotten that we lost.
No, yeah, because I know Rogue One underwent heavy reshoots, but I wonder, like, I don't think that was as much like them scared of fans per se, But post Last Jedi, it's like that's definitely what the case
They were
probably was
terrifying.
for Solo, and again, it's in like
Han is like a sacred cow, like
yeah,
like Dylan said this, and I talked about it as well on the Rogue One pod. Like, I think part of why Rogue One ends up being like this fan favorite movie is because you can do whatever you want with these characters because they all die at the end and you've never heard of them.
There's no baggage. Yeah, it was uncontroversial.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, Solo, it's like, this is like
Han and Chewie.
It's like one of the most recognizable, like, charismatic actors ever playing one of the most recognizable, charismatic characters ever. And you're recasting him and you're telling his backstory. It's like, it's, it's bound to either if you really go for it, it's going to upset people. And if you don't really go for it, you're going to make a boring movie. So like,
it's a tough catch. It's a tough catch 22 for this movie.
Exactly.
I thought the Game of Thrones directors had a Star Wars movie at one point.
Yeah, that's true. And then after season 8, it's like actually, there's a halt on that production. It's like, all right, King.
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, any final thoughts before diving into this rewatch?
I just wanted to mention that this is the second time, at least, that Star Wars or Kathleen Kennedy's followed that pipeline of casting from Coen Brothers movies, which you had Adam Driver and Oscar Isaac from Inside Llewyn Davis.
Yeah.
And then they get straight into Force Awakens. And then you have Hail Caesar. And now Alden's, boom, picked up. I'm going to snatch that one up.
And that is Solo. Inspired casting. Like, that is a great decision, even if they've like gone to CGI slop since then. Like, and also we are in the middle of an Aaron renaissance right now, between Oppenheimer and just like some other projects.
Some other project, Cocaine Bear.
Yeah. I went through that list pretty quickly, but namely Oppenheimer, people were like, "Oh wait, this guy."
Oppenheimer and
wait.
I mean, he has so much charisma in that movie. It's like, why wasn't this guy a star?
Was Sarah Haley Finn the casting director for Marvel? Is she the casting director for Star Wars as well?
Let's see. Oh, it's a woman named Nina Gold, and she was casting for Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Solo, Andor. Turn her up.
She knows what she's doing.
She's very, very good. Also the casting director for Burnt. So I mean, let her cook and Annihilation. This is great potting right now. He's reading up and Morbius. Okay.
Okay.
Not her fault.
Okay.
I'll let her cook. I mean, she just works a lot. It looks like
she was in the Amazon researching Solo with Kathleen Kennedy.
Also, let's just be thankful we didn't live in a timeline where Ansel Elgort got the Solo role because he was
in talks.
It was something I looked at. It's like him.
People
Miles
kept
Teller.
talking about Chris Pratt for Han. Imagine the world.
Well, they wanted
timeline.
Pratt for Indiana Jones.
Oh,
that was a huge thing.
Yeah. When did people think
that
Chris
was
Pratt
like Jurassic World?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the new Harrison Ford. Yeah.
Teller, Dave Franco was up for it. Logan Lerman, Emery Cohen's actually not a bad pick if they went with him. Rami Malek auditioned. Charlie Cox, Aaron Taylor Johnson.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah, a lot of people up for this movie. Taron Egerton. It looks like Alden,
that makes sense.
Jack Rayner, and Taron Egerton were like the three kind of on the short list.
Yeah,
I think Alden was a great choice though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And it's a shame that nowadays people are deep faking Solo scenes and just putting Harrison on.
Evil. I remember there's
dark.
Yeah. That truly bleak. I remember there was like some guy in like Vine or TikTok who had like a really, really good Harrison Ford impersonations, and people online were like, they should cast him. Like, it's like forgetting that like acting is more than just like doing an impersonation. It's like I don't know how much interiority that guy's bringing to that role. It's like, and again, it's like what we liked about Alden is that we'll talk about more in the post game, but like he also brought his own juice to it. Like he's not playing like he's supposed to be playing a different iteration of Han Solo. It's younger. Like, it's 20 years younger version. He shouldn't be a New Hope Han. It's like that's you would think that's common sense, but it was not for a lot of people. Like it's tough.
I will say that So while the stakes in this movie are incredibly low, what you have behind the scenes is incredibly high for Disney, because this is essentially the first real prequel that they're making. Where Rogue One is just, it could just be a period piece movie where it's like this takes place at 0 BBY or whatever.
They're creating that puzzle piece.
Because that is just like nobody that you need to know. Like Mon Mothma's there, but it's no big heavy hitters except Leia at the end and Vader, of course. But this is like the first real prequel, and it's like, okay, we're doing a prequel now. Star Wars is infamously known to have rough prequels, which Disney was constantly afraid about. I mean, they had to flip the switch 100% for Force Awakens. Because the George Lucas's prequels is incredibly different than the OT, where it's like this is more political and like world building. And then Disney's like, how do we make a prequel that's an action adventure and fun? That also goes through a checklist, but we have fun with it.
Well, what's so
I think it accomplishes it.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that it's going to be a fun time, especially going through this one. But what I think is interesting is that before this movie, I think there was a feeling that Disney was like deathly afraid of the prequels or even like referencing them. Like they had not caught on yet that like there was a renaissance of like people
reclamation of the prequels,
of the prequels, and it reached its heights around when Last Jedi came out. They were begging for prequel references, and so I'm curious about we've briefly mentioned the character that shows up at the end of Solo, like how late of an entry that was, because it's just a little tiny scene, and they were like, we got to do something, So I don't know.
Right.
It's interesting.
Mateo, any final thoughts?
I'm ready to go on that heist.
Oh yeah.
No, absolutely.
I'm ready to put together a crew.
Yeah.
I'm hyped for Woody Harrelson. I keep forgetting he was in a Star Wars movie. I don't know. He's always fun.
Broke. Let him cook.
Tobias Beckett.
Let Tobias cook.
I also probably one of my favorite Jon Favreau performances too.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He's the guy with all the arms. All the arms.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not remembering this at all. Okay.
That's also another crazy thing. How Paul Bettany was originally, that was like Michael K. Williams. But Michael K. Williams was that role, but like he wasn't able to like do all those reshoots. And so Paul Bettany's like tight with Ron Howard. And so just literally texted him, was like, can I be in Solo? He's like, you're the villain now. And just like put him in there. And so Paul Bettany was obviously all Ron, which is crazy.
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
Dude, I forgot.
Yeah.
He's great in this. Okay, yeah.
It was gonna just be a CGI alien. It was gonna be what?
That's right.
What is Zeb called, Mateo? Do you know?
Zeb is a. Hold on. He's like the big purple guys. I can't remember.
No, I know.
Lasat.
Yeah.
How did I know that? He was gonna be a Lasat. Which it was going to be a slot to tie it into Rebels, and I think that's why
those are too hard to do, man. They just did that in Ahsoka. I mean, it's like that's so hard. You can't do it practically.
But I think that they were constantly thinking, how do we tie this into our TV shows? Because of the end characters cameo and the fact that they wanted it to be a Lasat. But I'm glad it's just Paul Bettany.
Yeah,
I think Paul Bettany
was some makeup.
More just like lines on his face, and he's menacing, and he's it's the first time I took a step back and was like, okay, I like this performance. Like it's more because I only know him pretty much as Vision. I haven't gone down the Bettany road,
right?
So it's like to see a total 180 from Vision is like, oh, this is fun.
Everyone real acting chops.
Everyone on set looks like they're giving it all and having a good time, which is all you can really ask for. It's like, okay, well, if it's gonna go through a checklist and it's gonna be a little bit corny, I think the way I look at it is it was going to be Lord and Miller, and I think they wanted it to be as blatantly corny as possible with those lines.
They wanted like a comedy.
And that's the joke. It's like, oh, who are your people? You have none? Han Solo's your name. And then you're like, well, okay. Like, I think they went a little too. There's some lines in it that I'm like, that had to be a Lord and Miller line. Like Harrison Ford, watch it. It's a blink and you miss it line, but he's like, "Oh, I hurt my thumbs shooting out of the Falcon."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that feels real."
Like a fun, like irreverency, you know?
There's never any moments in Star Wars where it's like, "Oh, I hurt my thumb a little bit," or like, there's no bathroom in the Falcon. If you look up a diagram,
That's a good point.
There is no bathroom, so it's like anything that makes them feel more relatable is good for me.
I don't think we saw anyone in Star Wars go to the bathroom until Andor. Like
Yeah.
Hold on, wait, what's our? I know we're going on long a little bit. What character poster should I pull up for the? We were losing it, Dylan, on the Rogue One pod when we pull up the Bodhi Rook character poster. What's that for Solo?
He's the pilot.
Oh, I think there's posters. Well, Denny's had a collab with this, and you can probably maybe pull up for like the TikToks. You can pull up a Denny's commercial, but they had cards for every alien in the sabacc scenes. So I think one of those.
Oh yeah.
No
I'm
name fishbowl aliens. Can I just run and get something real quick? I want to show something before we.
Yes, I'm gonna send something to you guys real quick that you have.
I got Mud Trooper. Ooh, I just found a Topps card for Therm Scissor Punch.
Oh my no! Oh, I remember this guy.
This is the best one. John Favreau as Rio. That's my new favorite one.
Dude.
Yo.
I still have the Solo movie theater cup.
Let's go. That goes hard.
Let's go. That's rowdy.
So you have John Favreau center posed.
What?
No, that's Chewbacca.
I was gonna say
where John Favreau's character is in like a trench coat like this, but it's Woody Harrelson and Emilia Clarke. Chewbacca front and center. Not even Solo gets the front and center treatment in his own movie. And then Lando.
It's a
and
big
L3.
Chewie movie, if I remember correctly.
There's some funny parts with Chewie.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a shower scene. That's
that's right.
Where you get to see them shower.
Just dudes hanging
really
out.
Want.
Dylan, did you see the poster I just sent to you guys?
Is this
John
just
Favreau.
Yeah? Okay, the Therm Scissor Punch. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the Therm Scissor Punch.
I said that in the Zoom chat.
Straight up out of Dexter Jettster's.
Oh, you texted me something. Let me see.
That's
yeah,
my message about
that
John
also
Favreau's
just
Rio.
cool design.
Yeah,
Right?
Like just alone.
Yeah.
And he's swinging around in that spaceship in that scene. I'm like, I want to hang out with this guy.
Dude,
And he seems well traveled. He knows cultures.
Star Wars characters you'd grab
And
a
he
beer
knows-
with. Rio.
hits you with it's my last mission. And you're just like,
I don't think there's any Star Wars character that's like, I really love this food, or like that's all him. He's like, I love this food, and it feels again like that's adding good
Steph
world
character.
building, like good texture.
Yeah.
Great, like the fake food. Then you have the chicken in the pot, like lounge singers, like that stuff is like that's fun to me when it's like a weird alien thing, and it's like what did Star Wars people listen to, especially in a post Guardians of the Galaxy world where it's like, oh, we can have fun music and do spaceship battles.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you have? What do you have, Star Wars? And it's like we have the same John Williams score that's 50 years old. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But John Powell was like, no, let me add heat to this movie.
Let's go.
And some fun ones too.
Love that. Okay, I'm hyped for this rewatch. We're diving in, and we will see you all on the other side.
I might be the only person. Who knows what you really are?
What's that?
Get ready.
Thought we were in trouble there for a second, but it's fine. We're fine.
back. Us four have actually just completed the Kessel Run ourselves. We did it in 13 parsecs though, so no one gives a freak. No one cares
No
if
one
we do it in
cares,
the second
round down.
the second
You round
fast
down.
amount of time. Yeah, maybe we got to round down. But okay, I'm really excited to talk about this movie. Let's just dive straight in with kind of our general thoughts, our biggest takeaways from this movie. Mateo, how about you start us off?
Okay, I will. I'm gonna tell a story about Ron Howard because
Oh,
for better or
okay.
worse, Ron Howard directed this movie, right? Like
yeah.
over
Ron Howard
like
joint.
over 70% of this movie was shot by Ron Howard. Lord and Miller did not fight for directing credit. Like
Mhm.
the main guy in charge here was Ron, and Ron Howard, Ron Howard's like the Chipotle of directors, you know? Like
Okay.
he's like, it's like if you're like picking food places and you're not sure, solid, reliable choice, never gonna blow you
Yeah,
away.
and no one in the friend group is gonna oppose, you know?
Yeah, but he's never gonna blow you away. Like if you go in there on a good day and it's like, you know, the you got like the right employee, they didn't charge you the extra $1 for the guac, you know, if everything falls into place, it will be a very like satisfying meal and you'll feel good. But it's
Yeah.
never going to blow you away. It's not crazy, you know? And I think you see that in Solo to a pretty significant extent. Like I don't think there's anything in this movie that was particularly like shocking as like a directorial choice, but at the same time, I mean, he's just like he just keeps the ship in control. Like,
And working with a great cinematographer helps a lot too.
yeah, like, but you know, he's got a good eye for as a director. It's just like he's never going to do anything crazy. And wherever this movie is kind of like let down, it feels like, again, like the structure of the script and like kind of the disjointedness like weighs it down a little bit. But you know, at the end of the day, it's like this is a solid ride. It's like,
Yeah.
this is like a B+ Chipotle meal.
Sure.
I thought you were gonna
that.
say it was like Chipotle because like the studio can just tell him to do, you know, I want this, I want that, I want this.
I mean,
and he'll do that.
That too. He will though. He will do what you tell him to do.
That's fair. Seb, what about you?
So, truth be told to the audience, there's been a little bit of a time gap between the last time we spoke
That's
and
true.
last time I saw Solo, and now I've filmed an entire movie since then. So
It's been
you know,
like over a week for Seb since he watched
Yeah.
Solo for the pod.
so it's been I'm like kind of a different person at this point. So what I am looking at my notes and I see someone who was kind of meh on the film. Like I enjoyed it because I think it gets a bump because it's Star Wars. I think I can't deny the fact that I have a curving grade when it comes to Star Wars, that I'm like, I do enjoy this stuff just because it looks really good and it's Star Wars. But at the same time, I kind of similar to what Mateo said, was rather unimpressed by the story beats that it was hitting and especially the character work. Not a fan. But I think overall it's competently made, and there's nothing egregious that the film does. There's nothing like significantly wrong, but at the same time, maybe that's what bugged me is it felt like it didn't take any swings to me. I was like, it did the checklist thing that we talked about in the pregame where it was like, here's how you got his gun, here's like why he shoots first. Kira, we'll probably talk about her later, but not a fan of how they wrote her. It's not her fault, Amelia Clark's fault, but So, in the end, I think a lot of the actors are having fun, and I think that brings up the energy of the film to me, and that makes it very watchable. It has a pulse, and there is energy to it, but I can't deny the fact that there isn't a lot bringing me back besides just like it's a solid Star Wars story. It's cool to see how honestly, it's like some of the most fun bit is like when I saw like how Han met Chewie. That was like really, really great. I love that dynamic. I think they probably the best dynamic of the film is like that friendship that they cultivate. But yeah, that's currently where I stand.
Dylan, how about you? How does rewatch as our local solo salesman? How this watch treat you?
Wow. I mean, just to bounce off. I mean, yeah, this isn't going to be a shocking installment because it's a prequel that is, like we said in the pre-watch, heavily tied to a beloved character. So it's going to be a lot of like familiar stuff and a lot of stuff we've heard about and now we're finally seeing. So I don't think we ever get anything that's going to be shocking in any shape or form. The thing that I would say that is interesting with this movie is that this is like the first and I think the only Star Wars movie that doesn't really involve the Empire as a main focal point or Jedi at all.
Yeah.
Like there's only one lightsaber in this, and it's for a cameo. Why I pioneer this film, why I push this so hard is because this is a Star Wars film that took a chance and goes, let's drop the Force, let's drop the Jedi and the Sith, and let's just have guys running schemes, trying to make ends meet with some beloved characters, sure. And I think my favorite dynamic is Donald Glover and Alden as Solo and Lando. I think they have a good back and forth. Great. Again, I agree with you guys. It's the cast that's making this movie fun, despite all the rewrites, despite the reshoots and everything. It's the cast. You can definitely see it's giving their all, especially Glover and Alden, and Paul Bettany too. To some degree, this is the first time. Like I said, it's like I'm used to seeing him as Vision or Jarvis. He comes in and he's being a bad guy.
The Paul Bettany heat check is crazy. He's just
great.
He was getting carte blanche. Like he's so much fun at this.
So I still like the film. But coming into this pod and giving it a critical eye, does it deserve to be remembered or talked about currently? I do have some gripes with it. I'm not gonna stand here and go, it's a perfect film. There's definitely imperfections. But yeah, overall, I still like it. I'll still watch it every once in a while. I'll show somebody it if they have never seen it. Maybe not the first Star Wars movie you go with. Definitely like, this is what it could be. That's what I always like about it.
Yeah.
Because they could have way more stories without Jedi and Sith. Because they already got 9 of those.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely. I think this might be something I was thinking about while watching. This might be I don't want to say the only, but like this feels like the Star Wars movie you can most like recommend to someone as like a movie night. They're like, hey, like I need something to watch tonight. And like you can, again, Dylan said this a lot in the pre, but like you can just throw it on. It's like
it's a great background movie.
Like obviously it's enhanced if you know who Han Solo is. But if someone who hasn't seen any Star Wars movies could probably enjoy this.
To be fair, if I wanted to recommend a Star Wars movie for somebody to just throw on, I would just recommend Star Wars 1970.
Well, yes.
Like if you have no Star Wars knowledge,
I mean, yeah.
The first one is just
I guess if you're trying to like
if your goal is to get them hooked onto Star Wars and be like,
of course. I'm not saying
this is
their gateway. I guess if they've only seen A New Hope, I guess if they've seen A New Hope, you recommend them Empire. Okay, so this hypothesis is a little whack, but you know what I mean. Like,
I know. I've seen Chewbacca before. I know Han Solo's name. That sounds familiar. Let's like pop this on.
And if someone's like, I'm not really into that Star Wars stuff, I'm like, you could throw on Solo though. Like, you could watch. Solo.
It's a very like original trilogy, kind of like good, clean, fun movie.
Yeah,
what I mean?
And as for my viewing experience of this film, how do I want to start this? I like what Dylan was saying is, again, I don't want this to be misconstrued as me calling this a perfect film. The credits rolled and I was like, I don't really have any complaints. I'm not saying there aren't flaws. I'm not saying there aren't flaws, which and maybe I'm contradicting myself a little too much, but I'm like being real. I'm like, it's like we are getting like a Han Solo, just like anthology Star Wars movie. It's just like it's not hard to be like, sure, it could have been better in places. Like, sure, it could have been better. But I'm still, and I've talked about on the pod before of the whole, like, when I talk about films I hadn't seen since I call it computer science Chris days of like before like movies became like a focal point in my life. And so I hadn't seen this, since 2018 or whatever. So in my mind, those opinions were like kind of nullified. But like computer science Chris's takes still stand in a lot of way in the sense I'm still like what more did people like really want from this thing? It's like we can say, oh, I want like a Denis Villeneuve caliber solo film. It's like, yeah, sure. I want all those things too, but like there isn't a whole lot to hate, which I knew. And I see what you guys are saying in the sense of just like, oh, like it's kind of like the beige, like inoffensive way. But there is a lot I liked. Yeah. Like it's a net positive for me in a lot of ways.
Isn't it interesting that people complain about The Last Jedi and how it tried to subvert expectations over and over again and try to like constantly, be unpredictable. And then this movie comes out and it's possibly the most predictable Star Wars film.
Yes.
And they complain about that. They go, yeah, I knew we'd see the Kessel Run. Yeah, I knew we would see how they meet.
We mentioned that a little in the Rogue One pod of like Force Awakens. Yeah, Force Awakens gets punished for like harkening back to the old days of Star Wars. Last Jedi gets punished for like breaking off from it too much, and that's why people kind of flock to Rogue One because like it feels different, but not in a way that upsets us. I want to compare this movie to Rogue One in a little bit, but and maybe this is the take I should save for the end for our definitive statement. I would return and exchange every single non-Andor Star Wars Disney TV show for another Solo type of entry, be it another anthology film of this quality or literally Solo too. Like I don't know. I had a great time with it. In this,
I still think Mando season 1, but I understand.
Yeah, but sure, that's fair. Yeah, I'm not Mando season 1 and 2. I definitely had a lot of enjoyment out of, but like I just think again, like Star Wars exists in the theater. Like there's the Andor caveat for all of this, but like it just feels like so much more. There's just so much more meat on the bone for me, like in a movie, even if it's like a lesser Star Wars film for me. And I know I might be circling the drain a bit, right? But things that Dylan pointed out in the pregame were really shining for me in this movie. Like, because we get to the campfire scene, right, where it's after they've kind of left the war, he's kind of with the crew and they're getting ready for like the train heist the next day. And I'm watching that scene, which feels like maybe like a Lord Miller scene, but I'm watching that scene. I'm like, this is a real movie. Like this thing exists in its own world, in its own little 2 hours. I can recommend this to like almost anybody. And like the thing is in Rogue One, it's a spin-off film, but everything they talk about relates back to like the plot, the rebellion, the war, their backstory. It's all towards the Star Wars plot. And I really understood what Dylan was saying in the sense of like, this is what Star Wars like could have been for us in these last few years. Like we're watching these characters, some old, some new, just like exist in this universe, and we're watching this.
Maybe the word you're looking for is hang out.
It's a hangout. It's a hangout movie, and we're watching this like one story, and it doesn't have to be world-ending stakes, and they're talking about things other than just like, how are we going to take down the Empire? Like, what is the plot? Like Dylan said, it's like you got like Rio talking about like his favorite food and stuff. It's like
he's so well cultured. Where does he have the time?
I would
That's
travel
what I'll say.
with Rio.
This might be the first. You are correct in the sense that like this might be the first Star Wars movie with small talk.
Yeah,
and that's crazy to think about because like this was the ninth
Attack of the Clones had small talk in the elevator scene.
Oh, yes, I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so the ranking is Solo, then Attack of the Clones.
That's how you rank Star Wars now, is levels of small talk. And
levels
yeah. I mean, I would not, to be fair, I would not go so far as to call this a hangout movie because there are a lot of things that happen in this movie. Like
yes.
The pacing is breakneck.
Yeah. The pacing is very breakneck.
If like the entire movie was getting ready for that one train heist, then it would be like a hangout movie because it's just the movement and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Then it's a Fast and the Furious movie.
Yeah.
At that point.
Now we're cooking. Justin Lin Star Wars film. And the thing is, and this is where like the cloud of what was the Lord and Miller cut looms over us, because like it's because Lord and Miller, they're so good at in like injecting just like naturalism like into characters and making them feel like real people. Like we're at the campfire. When Tobias is like, "Are you a moron?" and Solo so earnestly, he's like, "No." He goes, "See, it's not a moron." Like that's like it's just they're just like talking like real people for a second. That's like a funny like little line.
I mean, the shower, Chewbacca and Han in the shower.
Really great.
Scene. That was a jump scare. Yeah, you guys
I
are
mean,
not
literally. I mean, you did not undersell that scene, Dylan. The shower scene hit. But I also want to shout out the moment Alden like shined the most, or his most Han moment, in my opinion, is when they're doing like the Kessel heist, and he's like walking up to like the vault, and there's like the one guard standing there, and he's like, he says a bunch of gibberish, and then Han says it back, and then the guy says it again. He's like, "That's what I said," and he like kicks him. Like that genuinely was hilarious.
Alden is terrific in this movie. It's like, at the very least, like, oh my, again, a shot of adrenaline to the veins watching someone with this much, like, which actual charisma, like, and this just so much charm, like, leading a film like this. Like,
young man energy.
Amazing.